Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back in time, not just to any place, but into a very specific, very dangerous fantasy. We're stepping into the world of medieval nobility, into the age of chivalry, knights, and the beautiful, elaborate line known as courtly love. Now, I know what you're thinking: romance, grand gestures, poetry. And yes, you'll get all of that. But you'll also get the cold, hard reality that was hiding just beneath the surface. Let's be honest. Dropped into this world with our modern sensibilities, you'd be lucky to survive the first week without causing a major political incident or, at the very least, offending someone who owns a very large sword. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, let me know what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the light, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The journey has been long, rattling your bones in a carriage that seemed to have a personal vendetta against comfort. But now you're here. You stand at the threshold of the Great Hall, and for a moment, the sheer scale of it steals your breath. The ceiling soars high above you into a world of shadow, held up by massive wooden beams, dark with the smoke of 1,000 fires. Torches flicker from iron sconces on the stone walls, their light dancing and making the shadows in the corners seem alive. The air is thick with a cocktail of smells: the sharp, pleasant scent of burning oak from the colossal fireplace, the savory aroma of roasting meats from the kitchens, and something else, something more human. It's the faint, musky scent of 100 bodies packed together, of damp wool, and the faintest whiff of old sweat. Welcome to high society. You take a hesitant step forward. The floor isn't the smooth, polished stone you might have imagined. Instead, it's covered in a thick layer of rushes, dried reeds, and herbs meant to soak up spills, dropped food, and whatever else might fall. With every step, you hear a soft crunch, and the herbs release a faint, sweet smell that barely masks the underlying odor of stale wine and grease from last night's feast. You look up, and your eyes are drawn to the tapestries. They are magnificent, woven with vibrant scenes of hunts, battles, and mythical beasts. They cover entire walls, a riot of color in the dim hall. This is a mainstream bit of castle life. Everyone knows tapestries weren't just for show. In a fortress made of stone, they were a crucial layer of insulation. The only thing separating the nobility from the bone-deep chill that forever seeped through the walls. You can feel that chill now, a constant, cool draft that seems to find the back of your neck no matter which way you turn. Now for a little detail you might not think about. That persistent, slightly unpleasant draft you feel. It might not just be from a poorly sealed window. Often the castle's toilets, or guardrobes, were a little more than a stone seat over a chute built into the thick outer wall, venting directly to the moat of the ground below. This ingenious, if not exactly hygienic, system meant that a faint, foul-smelling breeze could often find its way back into the castle's corridors. So as you stand there, looking regal, you might also be subtly smelling the latrine. It's the perfect metaphor for this world-gilded beauty layered right on top of a crude and uncomfortable reality. Everyone is watching you. As you move deeper into the hall, conversations don't stop, but they dip in volume, and you can feel the weight of dozens of gazes. Your clothes, which seemed so impossibly grand when you were at rest, now feel like a costume or perhaps armor. The heavy velvet, the intricate embroidery, the weight of the jewels sewn into your sleeves, they are all part of a uniform. They announce your family, your wealth, your status, before you've even spoken a word, and what you would say is a matter of some debate among scholars. Historians still argue about the precise level of education a person of your standing would have received. Could you read and write fluently in your own language? Were you taught some Latin for prayer? Could you manage household accounts, play a musical instrument, or were your primary skills focused on lineage and etiquette? Your knowledge, or lack thereof, is another part of the costume, another tool of vulnerability in the great game of the court. You are a walking, talking statement of power and alliance, and every single person in this hall is reading you like a text. You find your assigned place, the wood of the bench hard against your back, and you arrange your face into a polite, serene mask. The performance has begun. The clatter of wooden plates and the scrape of knives against pewter fill the air as the first course is served. It's a blur of motion and noise, servants weaving through the crowded benches with platters of food held high. You eat what is placed before you, a piece of roasted fowl, tearing at it with your fingers and a small, personal knife you carry. There are no forks to be seen, they are an extravagant and somewhat suspect Italian novelty. Not yet common here. You watch the high table where the lord and his most esteemed guests sit. Their conversation is a low murmur, a current of power flowing just above the heads of everyone else. It is a world of calculated glances, and you are still learning its language. Then, a hush begins to fall, starting from the high table and spreading outwards like a ripple. A figure has stepped into the cleared space before the hearth. He is a man of middling age, dressed not in the somber velvets of the court, but in brighter, more flamboyant colors. He carries a lute, its polished wood gleaming in the firelight. He is a troubadour, a professional poet and musician. These men are the celebrities of your age, wandering from castle to castle, carrying news gossip. Most importantly, stories. They are the living, breathing media of the 12th century, and a good one can hold a whole of rowdy, half-drunk nobles in captivated silence. He bows low to the lord and lady, then to the assembled company, his eyes seeming to catch yours for just a fraction of a second. He strums a chord, a clear, sweet sound that cuts through the remaining whispers. And then he begins to sing. His voice is not booming, but it is clear and carries a strange, compelling emotion. He sings not in the solemn Latin of the church, but in the vernacular, the language of the court, of the heart. This is part of the revolution for the first time complete. Emotional poetry is being created in the language everyone actually speaks, making it immediate and dangerously personal. The song tells a story you have never heard before. It's about a knight brave and peerless in battle who serves not his king or his god, but his lady. This lady is beautiful, of course, but she is also distant, unattainable, and, crucially, married to someone else. The knight does not seek to possess her. Instead, he performs great deeds in her name, his love for her a purifying fire that makes him a better man. He suffers in silence, his passion a sweet torment, a masculine term meaning my lord, signifying that he has submitted to her completely, making her his feudal superior in all matters of the heart. You listen, and the concept is so alien it's almost comical. Love, the force a knight dedicates his life to. In your world, love is a frivolous, childish notion, a theme for peasant songs. A knight's life is dedicated to his actual feudal lord, to acquiring land, to winning battles for tangible rewards. The idea of doing it all for a secret, unrequited passion for another man's wife is absurd. And yet there's a pull to it. The troubadour's melody is haunting, and the words paint a picture of a world more vibrant, more meaningful than the one you inhabit. Here's a curious little detail about this performance. While the troubadour sings of this chaste, ennobling love, his entire profession is often seen as slightly disreputable. These performers lived on the fringes of society, reliant on the generosity of patrons, and were sometimes viewed as little more than charming vagrants or clever flatterers. They sang of the highest ideals while living a life of precarious dependency. It's another layer of the beautiful lie, the performance of nobility by someone who often had none. The song ends. The knight has won a great tournament, but his only reward is a single, knowing glance from his lady. And it is enough. The final note of the lute hangs in the air, and for a moment, the hall is utterly still. Then, applause erupts, a wave of clapping hands and shouted approvals. You see ladies dabbing at their eyes with embroidered handkerchiefs. And even the hardened knights, men you've seen practice with brutal efficiency in the tilt yard, look thoughtful, captivated. And this is where the great debate lies, a question that historians still argue about to this day. What was this all for? Was courtly love, as it would come to be called, a genuine attempt to civilize a violent warrior class, teaching them empathy and restraint? Was it just a literary fad, a fun and elaborate game for bored aristocrats to pass the long winter evenings? Or, and this is the most dangerous possibility, was it a meticulously crafted social code, a set of instructions on how to conduct an adulterous affair with elegance and discretion, right under the nose of a powerful husband? The songs provided the language, the excuses, the romantic justification for what was, in reality, treason against the marital contract. The glances, the sighs, the secret tokens, the feigned suffering, it could all be a script. As you sit there, you feel a strange new door opening in your mind. The troubadour's song wasn't just a story. It was an invitation. It was a suggestion of a different way to live, a way to find meaning and passion in a life that was otherwise scripted from birth. The lie is sweet, and you are beginning to listen. The days that follow the troubadour's visit settle into a rhythm, the slow, predictable pulse of castle life. Your mornings are spent overseeing the household, a task far less glamorous than the poems suggest. It's a world of logistics, checking supplies in the storerooms, ensuring there's enough firewood for the 100 or so people living within these walls, mediating disputes between kitchen servants. You learn that power is not just about grand titles, it's about controlling the flow of resources. The person who holds the keys to the pantry holds a subtle but undeniable form of authority. You are surrounded by people, yet you feel a profound sense of isolation. The men's world is one of noise and sweat. They spend their days in the tilt yard, the large open space within the castle walls. You watch them from a high window, a safe and distant observer. You see the flash of steel as they practice their swordplay, the thud of blunted lances against shields. It looks like a sport, but it's not. It's rehearsal for the deadly business of war. The chivalry the troubadour sang about is hard to see here. You witness petty squabbles, brutal competitiveness, and a casual cruelty in how they treat their squires and horses. The knight who looked so moved by the poem about a suffering lover is the same man you now see berating a stable boy for a loose buckle. This is the great, unstated rule of the court. There are two sets of everything. There is the public performance of virtue, and there is the private reality of ambition. You see it at the dinner table. A man will publicly praise a rival's skill in the hunt, all while his spies are trying to discover a weakness in that rival's finances. A lady will compliment another's gown, but the compliment is laced with a subtle barb about the cost or the outdated style. A little verbal pinprick designed to assert dominance. You learn to listen not to what is said, but to what is left unsaid. The silence between words often carries more meaning than the words themselves. This public performance of chivalry is a well-documented ideal. Manuals were written about it, like the famous book of the Order of Chivalry by Ramon Lull, which laid out the moral, religious, and social obligations of a knight. He was supposed to be a defender of the church, a protector of the weak, and a paragon of virtue. This was the official curriculum, the mainstream knowledge of what a knight should be. But then there's the cold, weird little fact that runs contrary to this ideal. While knights were publicly sworn to protect the weak, their primary function in society was as an instrument of a lord's power, which often meant terrorizing the weak. A knight's duty might involve forcibly evicting peasants from their land, collecting crippling taxes, or sacking a rival lord's village. The very people they were sworn to protect in theory were often their victims in practice. Their code of conduct seemed to apply only to their interactions with other nobles, creating a stark and brutal class divide. The peasant you see toiling in the fields outside the castle walls does not see a noble protector, he sees a heavily armed man who has the legal right to ruin his life. The disconnect is dizzying. You are living in a world built on interlocking and often contradictory codes of conduct. There's the code of the church, which preaches humility and piety. There's the code of feudalism, which demands absolute loyalty to your lord. And now, layered over all of it, is this new, intoxicating code of courtly love, which seems to suggest that your ultimate loyalty could be to a secret, personal passion. Historians are still deeply divided on how to interpret this clash of values. Was the rise of war literature a sign that society was genuinely becoming more refined, a desperate attempt to impose ideals onto a brutal reality? Or was it a symptom of aristocratic decadence, a game played by a class of people with too much time on their hands, completely detached from the violent foundations of their own power? There is no easy answer. And the knight in the poem, sighing and suffering, were often the very same man. He was not a hypocrite in his own mind. He was simply operating under different rule books depending on the context. You start to understand that survival here is not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being the most adept at switching between these different sets of rules. It's about knowing when to be the pious lady, when to be the ruthless household manager, and perhaps when to be the distant, beautiful object of a night's secret devotion. You watch the other ladies of the court. You see them exchange glances, a shared joke in a poem, a subtle signal with a fan. They are already playing the game. They have read the rules, or rather, they have learned to read between the lines. The great hall, the chapel, the tilt yard, the garden, they are all just different stages for different performances. And you are beginning to realize you must learn your lines, or you will be forced off the stage entirely. The rhythm of your days is abruptly broken. A messenger arrives, his horse lathered and steaming, carrying a sealed letter for the lord of the castle. There's a sudden tension in the air, a seriousness that cuts through the routine. You see the lord reading the letter, his face an impassive mask. He confers with his closest advisors, their heads bowed together in a tight circle of whispered conversation. The news spreads quickly, not in a public announcement, but through the castle's invisible network of gossip and observation. A neighboring baron has died, leaving a strategically important piece of land and an unmarried daughter. Suddenly, you are summoned, not to the great hall, but to a small, private solar, a room warmed by its own fireplace and reserved for family and important business. Your presence is required. As you walk there, your heart thuds with a nervous energy. This feels different. This feels significant. Inside, the lord, your guardian, perhaps your father, perhaps your uncle, is standing before a large table. He is not looking at you, but at a map by modern standards, drawn on parchment, with forest represented by little drawings of trees and castles as simple stone towers. But to the men in this room, it is the entire world. The lord points with a thick finger to a specific area, a blot of color representing the lands of the recently deceased baron. His lands border our own here, he says, his voice flat and practical. He traces a line with his finger, and here they block our access to the river. An alliance has become necessary. He finally looks up at you, and his eyes are not unkind, but they are utterly devoid of sentiment. They are the eyes of a strategist, a chess player moving a piece on the board, and you are that piece. You will be married to his son, he announces. It is not a proposal. It is a statement of fact, as unchangeable as the stone walls around you. The union will secure the border and grant us navigation rights on the river. It is a good match. A good match. The words hang in the air. The man you are to be betrothed to is not described. His character, his appearance, none of it is mentioned. He is simply the symbol of the alliance, the human seal on a contract. Your future is being decided not by your heart or your hopes, but by the jagged lines on a piece of parchment. This is the absolute reality of aristocratic marriage. It was a primary to love, diplomacy, and state building, a way to consolidate power, acquire territory, and prevent wars or start them. Your personal feelings are not a factor. They are a luxury your station cannot afford. You stand there mute. To protest would be unthinkable, an act of rebellion against your family, your duty, your entire world. Your purpose as a high-born woman has been clear from birth to be a vessel for alliances and bloodlines. You are a bridge between two families, two fortunes, two political entities. Now for a strange and somewhat grim these arrangements. Betrothals could happen at an astonishingly young age. It wasn't uncommon for powerful families to arrange the marriage of their children when they were still, quite literally, infants in the cradle. These were legally binding contracts. Of course, the church had rules about the age of consent for a marriage to be consummated, typically 12 for girls and 14 for boys, but the deal was often sealed long before that. You might spend your entire childhood knowing exactly who you were going to marry, your life tethered to a stranger you'd met only a few times at formal events. You look back at the map, at the splotch of land that has just defined your entire existence. The troubadour songs of love and devotion feel like a cruel joke now. The knight who suffers for his lady's glance. Here in this room, the only glances are calculating ones, assessing the value of forests, fields, and river access. The sweet, secret world of courtly love in the cold, pragmatic world of the marriage contract exist side by side, and their collision is jarring. Historians have long debated the emotional impact of this system. Did medieval nobles simply accept this as the way of the world, feeling no sense of loss for a romantic connection they never expected to have in the first place? Or was there a quiet, unrecorded sea of personal tragedy beneath the surface of these political unions? Some surviving letters and poems suggest a deep well of personal feeling, of love and of grief, but for the most part, the historical record is silent, concerned with the deeds of lords and the transfer of property, not the quiet heartbreak of a young woman staring at a map. The lord rolls up the parchment. The deal is done. He gives you a brief, almost dismissive nod. You should be pleased. Your children will be great lords in a powerful, unified land. He is not trying to be cruel from his perspective. He has secured you the best possible future. A future of wealth, security, and status. He has done his duty. He has provided. The fact that he has sold you, as surely as a farmer sells a prize heifer at the market, does not enter into his perception of the event. You are dismissed. You walk out of the sorrow and back into the bustling life of the castle. But everything has changed. You are no longer just an observer of the court's games. You are now a key player, a pawn in a game you never asked to join, betrothed to a ghost who represents a river. The weeks leading up to the wedding are a flurry of activity, but none of it has anything to do with you as a person. It is all about the spectacle. Seamstresses are brought in, their needles flying as they craft a wedding gown of breathtaking expense. The fabric, a deep blue velvet, had to be imported from Italy, a journey of months. The thread for the embroidery is spun from real silver. Every stitch is a proclamation of your family's wealth. You stand for hours while they fit the heavy material to your body, a silent, living mannequin. The gown is not designed for your comfort, but for the awe of the guests who will witness the union. Wagons arrive daily, laden with supplies for the wedding feast. Barrels of wine, cages of live fowl, wheels of cheese older than a child. The castle kitchens, normally a hive of activity, are now a swirling vortex of controlled chaos. The entire event is a carefully orchestrated display of power. A magnificent wedding demonstrates that your family can afford to pour a fortune into a single day's celebration, a clear message to rivals and dellers alike. You meet your betrothed exactly once before the wedding day. The meeting is a formal, public affair in the Great Hall. He rides in with his own retinue, his banners bright and unfamiliar. He is a man. That's the first, overwhelming impression. Not the hero from a poem, not the monster from your fears, just a man. He is perhaps a few years older than you, with a face that is stern and weathered from a life spent largely outdoors. He kneels before your guardian, speaks the carefully rehearsed words of greeting and alliance. He then turns to you, and you are presented to each other like two prize falcons. He looks at you, his eyes assessing, and you look back, trying to read something, anything, in his guarded expression. There is no connection. There is no connection. There is only a mutual understanding of your shared predicament. You are the two principal actors in a play written by others. You exchange a few stilted pleasantries, your voices sounding small and strange in the vast hall. Then he is gone, off to be quartered with his men. The entire interaction lasts less than 5 minutes. The wedding day dawns grey and damp. You are dressed by your ladies in waiting, the cold, heavy velvet of the gown settling over you. The silver threads feel like a cage. They place a veil over your head, a fine silk that blurs the world into a soft, indistinct haze. As you walk towards the chapel, you are the center of a procession, a river of color and sound flowing through the castle bailey. You hear the cheer of the common folk who have gathered to see the spectacle, but it sounds distant, disconnected from you. The wedding ceremony itself is the key historical moment. It does not take place in the secretive privacy of a modern church. The most legally binding part of the ceremony, the exchange of vows, happens right at the church door in the open for all to see. This public declaration is crucial. The marriage needs witnesses, dozens, hundreds of them. It is a public act, a community affair. You stand on the stone steps, the priest before you, your hand placed in the hand of this stranger. His hand is rough and calloused. You recite the words, your voice a whisper. He recites them too, his voice a low rumble. A ring is placed on your finger. It is done. Here's a peculiar detail of the ceremony that highlights the transcational nature of it all. At a certain point, the bride's father or guardian would make a formal declaration of the dowry, the lands, the money, the goods that she brought to the marriage. It was an oral contract, spoken aloud for everyone to hear. With this woman, I grant you the rights to the northern forests, 300 head of cattle, and a chest of silver. It was the climax of the deal, the public announcement of the payment. You are not just being given, you are being given with. The feast that follows is a deafening, overwhelming affair. For hours you sit at the high table, a silent symbol next to your new husband. An endless parade of food is brought forth, some of it bizarre and theatrical. A roasted peacock, its feathers reattached to create a startlingly lifelike centerpiece. A whole roasted boar with an apple in its mouth. A subtlety of fantastic sculpture made of sugar representing your two families' coats of arms, now joined. But this time they sing songs of heroic lineage and great battles, not of secret, pining love. The contrast is almost sickening. You watch the festivities as if through a veil. You see the drunken laughter, the boisterous jokes, the dancing. It is a celebration of a political victory. And at the heart of that victory are you and the man beside you, to silent, still points in a swirling storm of revelry. Historians can reconstruct the guest lists, the menus, the cost of these great feasts. They can tell us what people wore and what songs they sang. But what they cannot fully capture is the profound, crushing loneliness of being the guest of honor at a celebration that has nothing to do with your own happiness. You look across the sea of faces, all celebrating your union, and you have never felt more alone. The grand, public spectacle of the wedding only serves to highlight the complete absence of any private, personal connection. The ceremony is for them, not for you. The feast finally winds down. The last of the wine has been drunk, the last song has been sung, and the torches in the great hall are burning low, casting long, dancing shadows. The air, once thick with noise and celebration, is now heavy with a drowsy silence. But your day is not over. In fact, its most daunting chapter is about to begin. A procession of ladies, some giggling, some looking at you with a kind of pity, escorts you from the hall. Your husband is led away by the men. This is the bedding ceremony, a ritual that is both deeply personal and bizarrely public. It's a formal, witnessed transition from the political ceremony of the day to the biological reality of the night. You are led to the bedchamber, a room you have never seen before. It is dominated by a massive bed, hung with heavy curtains to keep out the draught. It's a fortress within a fortress, the most private space in the castle, and tonight, it feels like a stage. Your ladies-in-waiting undress you, removing the heavy, silver-threaded gown, the veil, the intricate braids in your hair. They dress you in a simple linen shift. Their chatter fills the room, a mix of bawdy jokes and well wishes, all meant to ease the tension. But it only makes the air feel thicker. A priest arrives to bless the bed, sprinkling it with holy water, a final solemn sanction for the act that is to come. He murmurs prayers for fertility and the successful continuation of the bloodline. It is a stark reminder of the purpose of this night, not pleasure, not intimacy, but duty. Then, the curtains of the bedchamber are pulled back, and your husband is escorted in by his own attendants. He too is in a simple nightshirt. The guests, the lords and ladies who have followed you here, stand around the room watching. They offer a final cup of spiced wine to you both, a toast to your fruitfulness. It is an excruciatingly public moment, a final confirmation for the witnesses that the bride and groom have indeed been brought to the marriage bed together. Then, mercifully, they retreat, pulling the heavy door shut behind them, leaving the two of you alone in the sudden, deafening silence. You are now alone with a stranger, the man who is your husband. You can hear the crackle of the fire in the hearth, the sound of your own breathing. He stands on the other side of the room, and you can see the awkwardness in his posture. He is likely as uncomfortable as you are. This is a crucial, often overlooked aspect of arranged marriage, as the pressure was not just on the bride. The groom also had a profound duty to perform, a dynastic obligation to fulfill. Failure to consummate the marriage could be grounds for annulment, jeopardizing the entire political alliance that had been so carefully constructed. Here is a small but telling detail from this era: impotence in a husband could be a matter of public, legal inquiry. If a marriage went unconsummated, a wife could sue for annulment. The husband might then have to submit to a physical examination by court to prove his capability. In some cases, he might even be required to demonstrate his virility in a semi-public setting. The humiliation was immense. He is not just a man facing a woman, he is a lord facing a critical test of his honor and his family's future. He finally moves towards the bed. He does not speak. What is there to say? You have no shared history, no common language of intimacy. The act that follows is fumbling unsilent, a mechanical fulfillment of a contract. It is not an act of passion, but an act of state. You lie there, staring up into the dark canopy of the bed, feeling like a complete stranger in your own body. This is the brutal, unwritten clause of the marriage treaty, the surrender of your physical autonomy. The historical debate around this moment is a sensitive one. How did people in the Middle Ages truly perceive marital sex within these arranged unions? For centuries, the Church taught that sex was intended solely for procreation within marriage, and that any enjoyment of it, particularly by a woman, was suspect, a sign of lust. And yet, there are other texts, secular poems, and even some marital guides that speak of mutual affection and pleasure as a good thing, a way to foster a bond. Was your experience this cold, silent duty the norm? Or were there couples who managed to find some semblance of tenderness and connection in the darkness of the bedchamber? The truth, as is so often the case, was likely a spectrum. Some marriages over time would blossom into genuine affection and partnership. Others would remain cold, transactional arrangements for a lifetime. As you lie there in the dark, next to the breathing, sleeping form of this man whose name you barely know, the irony is crushing. The troubadours sing of a love so powerful, it can never be physically realized, a passion that thrives on distance and denial. Your reality is the precise opposite. You are bound in the most intimate physical union imaginable, with a complete absence of love, passion, or even simple affection. The courtly love fantasy is not just an escape, it is a direct inversion of your lived experience. It offers a world where the heart rules, precisely because your own world is ruled by everything but. The silence of the room feels vast and empty, and you have never been more aware of the chasm between the stories people tell and the lives they are forced to live. The morning after the wedding brings with it a stark new reality. The castle is no longer your temporary home, it is your domain, and your prison. The sheets of the marital bed are, in some cases, inspected by senior ladies in waiting for proof of consummation. It's a final, humiliating public confirmation of a private act, and it solidifies the unbreakable nature of the alliance. Your status has fundamentally changed. You are no longer a daughter or a ward, you are a wife, all-consuming expectation. Your life, which was once your own, now revolves around a singular, biological imperative: you must produce an heir. A son. Every month that passes without a sign of pregnancy is a month of mounting pressure. You feel it in the glances of your husband, in the pointedly hopeful comments of your ladies in waiting, in the very air of the castle. You are a vessel, and your value is intrinsically tied to your ability to fulfill your function. The entire political and social structure of the aristocracy rests on this one fragile point. The mainstream historical fact is that primogeniture, the system where the eldest son inherits everything, was the bedrock of stability. It prevented lands from being endlessly divided among multiple heirs, which would weaken a family's power over generations. A clear, undisputed male heir meant a smooth transfer of power. No heir, or only daughters, meant uncertainty, instability, and the potential for a succession crisis. Your womb is not your own, it is a piece of state property. You pray, you go to chapel daily, kneeling on the cold stone, praying not for happiness but for a child. You are given folk remedies by the castle women, strange herbal concoctions and talismans said to increase fertility. You do it all because the alternative is unthinkable. A barren wife could, in some circumstances, be set aside. While divorce as we know it was nearly impossible, annulments could be granted by the church, often on the grounds of non-consummation, or more conveniently, the discovery that you and your husband were related within the church's complex and ever-changing prohibited degrees of kinship. A powerful lord who needed an heir could often find a way to discard a wife who failed to provide one. Your position is precarious, entirely dependent on your biology. This brings us to a weird, and frankly sad, little piece of medieval life: the obsession with male sperm. It was commonly believed, based on the teachings of ancient thinkers like Aristotle and Galen, that the man provided the seed of life, containing the complete form of the human, while the woman was merely the field or oven in which it grew. Her contribution was passive and material. This meant that if a couple was childless, the fault was almost universally placed upon the woman. It was her field that was barren, her oven that was cold. The man's potency was rarely questioned unless the marriage remained unconsummated. This deeply ingrained scientific misunderstanding placed the entire burden and blame of childlessness squarely on the shoulders of women. So you wait. And in the waiting, a strange, hollow routine forms. You share your days and your bed with the man who is your husband. You learn his habits, the sound of his footsteps, the way he clears his throat. A kind of familiarity of two prisoners, sharing a cell, not the intimacy of partners. There are no long conversations by the fire, no shared laughter. Your interactions are formal, centered around the management of the household and the estate. He speaks to you of crop yields, of disputes with his vassals, of the king's latest demands for taxes or soldiers. You are his chief administrator, the lady of the castle, but not his confidant. The question of what constituted a typical medieval noble marriage is a subject of endless scholarly debate. Were they all as cold and functional as yours? Some historians, pointing to the political nature of the contracts, argue that affection was a bonus, not an expectation. They believed that men and women of this class lived larger lives, seeking companionship and emotional fulfillment elsewhere, men with their comrades in arms, and women with their children and other female members of the court. Other historians, however, argue that this view is too cynical. They point to surviving letters between spouses that express genuine love, concern, and a deep sense of partnership. They suggest that over years of shared life, facing dangers and raising children together, many couples grew to love each other deeply. Your life, for now, exists in the colder of these two realities. The weight of your duty is a physical presence, a heavy cloak you can never take off. Every interaction, every meal shared, every night spent in the cavernous bed is underscored by this single, silent question: is there a child yet? The beautiful lie of courtly love, with its celebration of a chosen, personal devotion, seems more distant and more desirable than ever. It represents everything your life is not, where you had none. It is about emotion, where you have only duty. It is about all of that is independent of heirs and inheritance, a love for love's sake. And the more your real life is defined by the cold mechanics of lineage, the more you find your mind drifting towards the impossible, romanticized world of the poets. It is the only place you can imagine being valued for who you are, not for what you can produce. Months, maybe even a year, have passed. The crushing pressure to produce an heir has become a dull, constant take, a backdrop to your every waking moment. The castle, once new and intimidating, is now intimately familiar. You know its secret drafts, the loose flagstone in the west corridor, the way the light falls in the chapel at dawn. You have carved out a life of sterile efficiency, a queen in a kingdom of inventories and servants. The relationship with your husband remains unchanged or formal, a light partnership based on shared responsibilities. There is respect, perhaps, but no warmth. You are the two pillars holding up the roof of the estate, standing parallel but never touching. And then it begins. Not with a grand declaration, but with a series of small, almost imperceptible moments. A new knight joins your husband's retinue, a younger son from a lesser noble house, with no land of his own but a reputation for skill in the tourney. You notice him first in the tilt yard. While other knights are a flurry of grunting, brute force, he moves with a certain grace, a fluid economy of motion that is captivating to watch. Your eyes meet across the yard for just a second longer than necessary. It means nothing. and yet it means everything. A few days later, at the evening meal, a conversation turns to poetry. Someone mentions the troubadour who visited your old home so long ago. You make a small, quiet comment, remarking on a particular line from his song that you remember. Across the table, the new knight looks up, and there is a flicker of recognition of understanding in his eyes. He adds to your comment, quoting the next line of the poem perfectly. It's a tiny, shared moment of connection in a hall full of noise, a secret intellectual handshake. This is how the game of courtly love begins. It is a slow, subtle dance of testing the waters. It's not about overt flirtation. It's about creating a private, unspoken language. The primary to love this language is allusion. You speak of the great lovers of romance, Tristan and Isolde lols. You are not talking about yourselves, of course. You are discussing literature. But the subtext is electric. By praising Lancelot's devotion, you are implicitly communicating a set of values, a longing for love that transcends duty. The knight, by agreeing, signals that he understands and shares that longing. This use of love stories as a proxy for personal feelings is a well-documented part of courtly culture. It was a safe way to explore dangerous emotions. You could speak passionately about a fictional character's suffering, and in doing so, express your own. Everyone around you hears a literary critique, the intended recipient hears a confession. Then come the glances. You learn to master the art of the fleeting look. A gaze held for a heartbeat too long during a toast. A shared, silent acknowledgement of a ridiculous comment made by a boorish old baron. A quick, almost invisible smile when he enters the room. These are the small sparks that fuel the growing fire. A strange and delightful tidbit from this world is The Art of Courtly Love, a real book written in the late 12th century by a man named Andreas Capellanus. It's a pseudo-scholarly, tongue-in-cheek manual on how to conduct a courtly affair. It lays out rules, dialogues, and scenarios. For example, it famously presents a series of courts of love, where noble ladies would supposedly sit in judgment on complex romantic problems, like can true love exist between married people? By the way, it is a resounding no. The very existence of this book raises a fascinating, and still debated, question among historians. Was this manual a genuine reflection of how people behaved, a sort of how-to guide for aristocratic flirting? Or was it a piece of satire, a parody of the very culture it claimed to be describing? Scholars are divided. Some see it as an invaluable window into the social codes of the time. Others believe Andreas was a clever cleric, subtly mocking the frivolous and immoral pastimes of the nobility he served. The truth is, it was probably a bit of both a playful game that also happened to codify a very real social practice. You are not reading a book, but you are learning the rules instinctively. You are beginning to feel a sense of excitement, a dangerous, thrilling departure from the grey monotony of your life. The castle, once a symbol of your confinement, now holds a secret. Every public gathering is an opportunity for a hidden exchange. Every meal is a chance for a stolen glance. You feel alive in a way you haven't felt since you were a child. The world, which had seemed so drained of color, is suddenly vibrant. This is the seductive genius of the courtly system. It doesn't require clandestine meetings in the dark, not yet. Anyway, it thrives in plain sight. It is a performance layered on top of the other performances of court life. You are still the dutiful wife, the lady of the castle. He is still the loyal knight in your husband's service. Nothing has overtly changed. But beneath the surface, a secret narrative is being written, one glance, one shared verse, one fleeting smile at a time. And you are willingly, eagerly, playing your part. The season turns. The damp chill of winter gives way to the first hints of spring, and with it comes the announcement of a tournament. Your husband, as a prominent lord, will host the event. Knights from all the neighboring lands will come to compete in the joust and the melee, a grand display of martial prowess and charts to win fame and fortune. For the men, it is the ultimate test of their skills. For the ladies of the court, it is the ultimate social event, a week of feasting, dancing, and high drama. For you, it is an opportunity. The tournament field becomes the new stage for the game you are playing. The code of courtly love is not just for poets and singers, it is inextricably linked with the culture of the tournament. The entire spectacle is framed as a performance for the ladies. The knights are no longer just soldiers in training, they are champions, competing for the admiration of the fairer sex. The violence of the tilt yard is repackaged as a romantic gesture. In the days leading up to the tournament, the knight you have been exchanging glances with approaches you. It is a public setting with others nearby, so the interaction is perfectly proper. He bows, his eyes fixed on the ground in a show of respect. He speaks not of personal feelings, but of the upcoming contest. He says he hopes to fight well and bring honor to the household. Then he makes his move. He asks if you would do him the great honor of granting him a token, a favor to wear during the joust. This is a classic mainstream ritual of chivalry. A knight would ask a lady for a favor, typically a sleeve, a scarf or a handkerchief to tie to his helmet or lance. It was a public declaration that he was dedicating his performance in the tournament to her. On the surface, it is a gesture of profound respect. He is making you his inspiration, his muse. He fights in your name. But beneath the surface, the gesture is electric with unspoken meaning. By granting his request, you are publicly linking yourself to him. It is not an admission of an affair, not yet. But it is a signal, a public acknowledgement of a special bond. All eyes will be on him during the tournament, and by extension on you. His victories will be your victories. His defeats, your shame. You are choosing a champion. You hesitate for a moment, the implications washing over you. This is a significant escalation. A shared verse in the Great Hall is one thing. A public token is another. You look at him, and in his eyes, you see not arrogance, but kind of nervous hope. It mirrors your own. You slowly untie a small, embroidered silk ribbon from your sleeve. The ribbon is insignificant in itself, a mere scrap of fabric. But, as a symbol, its weight is immense. His fingers brushing yours for a half-second, a spark of contact that feels more intimate than a full embrace. He bows again, a silent promise in his eyes, and walks away. Here's a curious and slightly counterintuitive detail about these favors. While the gesture was intensely personal and romantic, it was also a key part of a knight's branding. A knight who was known to be the champion of a particularly beautiful or high-ranking lady gained status. The lady's own social standing reflected on him. So, his choice of whom to ask for a favor was not always purely a matter of the heart. It could be a calculated career move. By asking you, the lady of the castle, he is not just expressing his secret devotion, he is also publicly aligning himself with power. It's a brilliant fusion of romance and ambition. The question of how these public displays were interpreted by the husband is a matter of historical debate. Did he see it as a charming, harmless game, a bit of pageantry that added to the splendor of his tournament? Or did he view it as a potential threat, a sign of a growing intimacy that needed to be watched? The answer probably depended on the man and on the specific context. Some husbands, secure in their power, might have even encouraged it, seeing their wife's desirability as a reflection of their own status. A beautiful, admired wife was another one of their valuable possessions. Others, more jealous or insecure, might have seen the shadow of a real threat in that small piece of silk. You watch him go, the ribbon clutched in his hand. You have crossed a line. The secret language has now produced a physical object, a piece of evidence. Your heart is pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. You look over at your husband, who is deep in conversation with his master of horse, planning the logistics of the jousting lanes. He hasn't noticed. Or if he has, he gives no sign. The game is becoming more real, more tangible. It is no longer just a game of glances and words, but of actions and objects. That small ribbon, fluttering from a steel helmet in the midst of the violent chaos of the joust, will be a secret message, a testament to the hidden world you are building together. Right in the center of the world that has tried so hard to control you. The tournament has not even begun, but you feel as though you have already won a great victory. A few days later, as you are walking through the castle's cloistered garden, a page boy approaches you. He is young, barely a teenager, and he bows low, avoiding your eyes. He presents you with a small folded piece of parchment, tied with a simple string. He murmurs that it was given to him by one of the knights, with instructions to deliver it to you when you were alone. Then he scurries away, leaving you with the object in your hand. Your heart quickens. You know who it's from. Written correspondence is a rare and precious thing in your world. Parchment is expensive, ink is laborious to make, and literacy, while growing, is by no means universal. A letter is a significant gesture, a tangible piece of someone's thoughts. You find a secluded stone bench, hidden behind a trellis of climbing roses, and carefully untie the string. The parchment is smooth and cool to the touch. You unroll it to reveal not a long rambling letter, but a poem. It is written in a neat, careful hand, the ink a dark, rich brown. It is a sonnet, a form that is still relatively new and fashionable, imported from Italy. Its structure is tight, elegant, and controlled, a perfect vessel for the carefully contained emotions it describes. The poem does not name you. It does not speak directly of love or of any forbidden act. Instead, it uses the classic language of courtly love. It speaks of the poet as a humble servant, and the object of his affection as a distant, celestial being, a star that guides him. He compares your eyes to sapphires, your hair to spun gold. He claims that your virtue is a fortress, and your beauty is a holy light that both inspires him and causes him immense, sweet suffering, but finds his only purpose in serving you from afar. As you read the words, a strange and powerful feeling washes over you. You are, for the first time in your life, being seen. Or rather, an idealized version of you is being seen. Or husband sees you as a household manager and the potential mother of his heir. The court sees you as a political symbol, the lady of the castle. But this poem sees you as something else entirely, a source of inspiration, a being of almost divine power. It separates you from your function and elevates you into an idea. This is the core function of much of courtly poetry. It was designed to flatter, to elevate, and to seduce through idealization. The lady in the poem is never a real, complex human being with flaws and daily worries. She is a perfect, static image, a mirror in which the knight can see his own noble suffering reflected. It's a brilliant strategy. The knight isn't saying I desire you, he is saying your perfection makes me a better man. It's an appeal to your virtue, not your vanity. And yet you almost believe it. The language is so beautiful, the sentiment so pure that it feels real. The cold, transcational reality of your marriage melts away, replaced by this intoxicating fantasy. You, who have felt like a pawn for so long, are suddenly a queen, a goddess, a star. You run your fingers over the carefully formed letters, the physical trace of his thought. Here's a small, curious fact about literacy and letter writing in this period. While a nobleman like this knight might have been able to write, it was also very common for people to use scribes. A professional scribe could be hired to write a letter for you, and you would dictate what you wanted to say. This adds a fascinating layer of ambiguity. Is the beautiful handwriting you are admiring actually his? Or is it the work of a hired professional? Furthermore, was the poem his own original composition, or was he borrowing a popular poem, perhaps changing a few words to personalize it? The concept of plagiarism as we know it didn't really exist. Poems and songs were meant to be shared, adapted, and reused. This academic uncertainty introduces a subtle crack in the perfect fantasy. Is this a genuine, personal expression of his soul, or is he expertly playing the game, using the established forms and even hired help to achieve a desired effect? The historians who study these documents are constantly asking these questions. They analyze the handwriting, the vocabulary, the poetic forms, trying to distinguish between genuine personal expression and a skillful deployment of courtly conventions. But sitting on that stone bench with the scent of roses in the air, you are not thinking like a historian. You are thinking like a woman who has been starved of affection and appreciation. The question of the poem's authenticity doesn't matter as much as its effect. It makes you feel seen, desired, and, most importantly, powerful. It confirms that the secret world you are building is real. The glances and the token were the prologue. This poem is the first chapter. You carefully fold the parchment and hide it in a small pouch at your waist. It feels warm against your skin, a secret source of heat. It is a dangerous object. If it were found and read by the wrong person, it could be interpreted as evidence of a conspiracy and affair. But that danger is part of its allure. For the first time, you have a secret that is entirely your own, a story that is being written for you and about you. The sweet lie of the poem feels more true than anything you have experienced in years. The day of the tournament arrives, a spectacle of organized chaos and vibrant color. Pavilions and tents have sprung up around the tournament field, their fabrics painted with the coats of arms of the visiting lords. The air hums with the whinnying of horses, the clang of hammers on armor, and the boisterous shouts of squires and merchants. You take your place in the viewing stand, a specially constructed gallery for the high-ranking ladies. You are seated in the center, next to your husband, a position of honor that feels more like a gilded cage. From this vantage point, you have a perfect view of the proceedings. The knights, magnificent in their polished steel and plumed helmets, parade onto the field. They are no longer just men, they are transformed by their armor into glittering, anonymous engines of chivalry. They ride past the viewing stand, dipping their lances in salute to the ladies. You watch them, your face a mask of polite interest, but your eyes search for one specific figure. And then you see him. He is riding a powerful black charger, his armor gleaming. Tied to the very tip of his lance, fluttering in the breeze, is your silk ribbon. It is a tiny speck of blue against the vast green of the field. But to you, it is as bright as a beacon. He rides past the stand, and as he salutes, he directs his lance towards you, a gesture so subtle that only someone watching for it would notice. Your husband beside you sees nothing, busy exchanging pleasantries with the lord to his left, but you see it, and you know it was meant for you. The jousts begin. The thunder of hoofs, the splintering crash of lance against shield, the roar of the crowd. It's a brutal, breathtaking sport. A well-aimed lance could unhorse a rider, sending him crashing to the ground in a heap of metal. Injuries are common, and death is not unheard of. This isn't a game, it's a performance of controlled violence. Your champion fights with the same grace you first noticed in the tilt yard. He seems to anticipate his opponent's moves, his horsemanship flawless. He breaks lance after lance, winning his first pass, then his second. With each victory, the crowd cheers his name, and you feel a strange sense of pride, as if you were the one on the field. The link between you, symbolized by that ribbon, feels intensely real. By the end of the day, after numerous passes, he is one of the last knights remaining. He has fought with incredible skill and, it seems, a kind of inspired determination. The final joust is against a much larger, more experienced knight, a famous champion. The tension in the crowd is palpable. They charge a thunderous meeting of horse and steel. For a moment, it looks like he will be overpowered. But at the last second, he strikes a perfect blow, shattering his lance squarely on his opponent's shield and sending the bigger man tumbling to the ground. He has won. The crowd erupts. He is the champion of the day. As he rides his victory lap, his horse breathing hard, he stops before the viewing stand. He removes his helmet, his face flushed with exertion and triumph, his hair matted with sweat. He is no longer the idealized poet. He is a tired, victorious warrior. And now comes the climax of the tournament's romantic theater. It is the champion's right to name the queen of love and beauty. This woman, chosen by him, will preside over the evening's feast and award the prizes. It is the highest honor a lady can receive at a tournament. He looks up at the stands, his eyes scanning the faces of the ladies. But everyone knows who he will choose. His gaze lands on you, and he speaks your name, his voice clear and ringing across the field. A murmur goes through the crowd. You feel 100 pairs of eyes turn towards you. It is a moment of supreme triumph and supreme danger. You are being publicly crowned by the man who wears your favor, the man who sent you a secret poem. The subtext is so thick you could cut it with a knife. You glance at your husband. His face is unreadable. Is this a moment of pride for him? His wife being honored? Is it a moment of public humiliation? A clear signal of an intimacy that excludes him? This is a question historians often ponder, how much of this pageantry was truly play, And at what point did it cross the line into a real challenge to a husband's honor? There was no clear line. It was a matter of perception, of rumor, of power. A strange but important detail of this ceremony is that the Queen of Love and Beauty was not just a passive recipient of the honor. She was expected to play a role. She had to be gracious, eloquent, and embody the very ideals of noble femininity that the tournament was supposed to celebrate. Her performance was as crucial as the knights. You gracefully accept. You are escorted down to the field, where the knight kneels before you, presenting you with a small, ceremonial wreath of laurel leaves. You place it on his head, your fingers once again brushing against him, a fleeting, electric contact in full view of the world. For this one perfect moment, the fantasy has become real. You are the queen. He is your champion. The beautiful lie of courtly love is being enacted for all to see, and it is glorious. Smiling for the crowd, a cold knot of fear begins to form in your stomach. This is the highest you can climb in this game. And from this height, the only way to go is down. The feast that evening is in your honor. As the Queen of Love and Beauty, you sit at the center of the high table, in the seat that is normally your husband's. He is seated to your right, and your champion, the hero of the day, is seated to your left. The arrangement is dictated by tradition, but it feels like a deliberate, theatrical staging of the drama that has been unfolding. You are literally placed between your duty and your desire. The hall is buzzing with the energy of the tournament. The troubadours sing songs about your champion's victory, improvising verses that praise his strength and, more pointedly, his devotion to the noble lady who inspired him. Everyone applauds, everyone applauds, everyone smiles, but you are acutely aware of the subtle currents of observation flowing around you. You feel like you are under a microscope. The other ladies watch you, some with envy, some with a kind of knowing amusement, their eyes lingering on you and the knight. They are all reading the story. You exchange polite, formal conversation with your champion. You compliment his skill. He, in turn, deflects the praise, claiming that it was the inspiration of his queen that gave him strength. It is the perfect courtly dialogue, every word polished and correct. But beneath the public script, there is a private one. A shared glance when the wine is poured. A moment when his knee accidentally yours under the table, sending a jolt through you. Secret moments are the real conversation. As the evening wears on, you begin to see the man behind the performance. The champion who was so godlike on the tournament field is, up close, just a man. He drinks a little too loudly at a coarse joke from the man across the table. He speaks with passion about his horses, his armor, his ambitions for winning a small parcel of land from the king. You see the calluses on his hands, a small, healing scar on his jaw. This is a crucial turning point. The idealized figure from the poem, the perfect, suffering servant, is beginning to merge with the real, flawed human being beside you. The fantasy is colliding with reality, and the result is confusing. Part of you is disappointed. The perfect, celestial love of the poems is so much cleaner, so much neater than the messy reality of a person with earthly appetites and ambitions. The knight who worships you as a distant star is also a man who wants to get ahead in the world. This duality is something that often gets lost in modern romantic retellings of this era. We tend to focus on the pure poetic ideal. But a knight was a professional warrior. His participation in tournaments wasn't just for romance, it was his job. Winning meant prize money, valuable war horses and armor stripped from the loser, and most importantly, catching the eye of a powerful lord who might grant him a permanent position or land. His devotion to you and his desire for professional advancement are not mutually exclusive, they are intertwined. His love for you elevates his status, making him more attractive to potential patrons. There's a strange, almost comical element to this when you think about it. Imagine a modern athlete dedicating his Super Bowl victory to a famous actress HES never met. It's a public performance of admiration that also happens to be a fantastic career move, boosting his personal brand. The motivations are a complex, and perhaps cynical, mix of genuine admiration and calculated self-interest. Historians often debate the sincerity of a knight's proclaimed devotion. Was he truly in the throes of a noble spiritual passion? Or was he a savvy operator, using the language of courtly love as a tool for social climbing? The most likely answer is that it was a confusing muddle of both, even for the knight himself. He probably did feel a genuine admiration and attraction, but he was also acutely aware of the social and financial benefits that came from being the champion of a high-ranking lady. You look from the knight on your left to your husband on your right. Your husband is stoic, impassive. He discusses politics with a neighboring baron, seemingly oblivious to the charged atmosphere around you. He is the embodiment of reality, solid, predictable, and devoid of passion. The knight is the embodiment of the fantasy, exciting, dangerous, and perhaps not entirely real. For the first time, you begin to question the fantasy itself. The beautiful lie was so appealing when it was a secret escape. But now, sitting here in the full glare of the court, with a real man beside you, you start to wonder what you actually want. Do you want the perfect, poetic love of the story, or do you want the flawed, ambitious man who wrote it? And are you prepared for the consequences of choosing either? The night is a triumph, but it is a confusing one, leaving you with more questions than answers and a growing sense of dread about where this path is leading. The public triumph of the tournament creates a new kind of tension. The game of glances and poems, once a thrilling secret, now feels insufficient. The public performance of devotion has created a powerful expectation, a need for the private reality to catch up. The fantasy needs to take a step closer to the physical world. The opportunity comes a few nights after the tournament. There is another feast, smaller this time, less formal. Many of the guests spill out from the stuffy great hall into the castle's gardens to enjoy the cool night air. The gardens at night are a different world. The familiar paths and flowers are transformed by moonlight into a maze of silver and shadow. The scent of night, blooming jasmine, hangs heavy in the air. It's a place of carefully cultivated beauty, but at night it feels wilder, a place where the rules of the brightly lit hall no longer apply. You find yourself walking along a secluded path, ostensibly to get some air, but you know you are not just wandering aimlessly. And then he is there. He seems to emerge from the shadows of a large yew hedge as if by magic. For a moment you both stand in silence, the distant sounds of laughter from the hall feeling a world away. The public performance is over. There are no witnesses here. This is a new, more dangerous stage. My lady, he says, his voice low. It's the first time he has spoken to you in private, without the shield of courtly formality. You shouldn't be here. You know this. A noble woman, a wife, alone in the dark with a knight who is not her husband. It is a scandalous, reckless act. But the thrill of it, the sheer, heart-pounding terror and excitement, overrides all sense of propriety. This is the moment where courtly love often transitioned from a literary game to a very real and perilous activity. The garden or the orchard is a classic setting in medieval romance for these secret meetings. It's a liminal space part of the castle, but separate from its rigid social structures. It's a piece of tamed nature, a symbol of a place where natural desires can momentarily overcome social constraints. He takes a step closer. He doesn't touch you, but you can feel the heat radiating from him. He begins to speak, and the words are no longer the polished, elaborate metaphors of the poem. He speaks of how he thought of you during the joust, how the sight of your ribbon on his lance gave him a strength he didn't know he possessed. He tells you that your presence in the castle has transformed his world from a place of duty into a place of light, but it feels more honest, more raw than the sonnet. You find yourself responding, your own voice a whisper. You tell him how you admired his courage, how his victory felt like your own. You are both speaking in a kind of code, still circling the true subject. But the meaning is clear. You are confessing your mutual attraction, your shared secret. Here's a curious tidbit about these secret conversations. The etiquette was incredibly complex. According to Andreas Capellanus, The Art of Courtly Love, there was a whole system of escalating dialogue. A man couldn't just rush in with a declaration of love. He had to begin by praising the lady's character, then her beauty. Then, finally, he could begin to hint at his own feelings. The lady, in turn, was expected to demur, to resist, to test his sincerity through a series of rebuffs and questions. It was a verbal dance, a seduction by rhetoric. But there in the moonlight, the book's rules seem a little absurd. The feeling between you is too strong for such elaborate games. The air is thick with unspoken words. He finally closes the small distance between you. He reaches out and takes your hand. His touch is warm and firm. It is a simple gesture, but it is a massive transgression. This is not the fleeting, accidental brush of fingers. This is a deliberate, conscious act of physical intimacy. You don't pull away. The academic debate here is intense. When these affairs happened, how physical did they get? Some historians argue that many courtly affairs were just that intense, emotional, but ultimately platonic relationships. A kind of romanticized friendship that allowed an outlet for feelings that couldn't be expressed in marriage. They believe the love was real, but the physical consummation was rare, confined to the most reckless or the most fictional of cases. Others argue that this is a naive, Victorian-era whitewash of the past. They contend that the poems and stories, with their constant talk of suffering and desire, were clearly a smokescreen for real physical adultery. Human nature, they argue, hasn't changed that much. In this moment, as he holds your hand, you are standing on the knife's edge of that debate. You have a choice. You could pull your hand away, retreating back into the safety of the platonic ideal. You could keep him as the perfect, distant admirer from the poems, or you could let this moment lead you further down a path of physical intimacy, a path that leads to true adultery, with all its ecstasy and all its catastrophic risks. He lifts your hand to his lips and gently kisses your knuckles. It is a gesture straight out of the romances, and yet it feels completely, breathtakingly real. Your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs. You have crossed the line from flirtation to conspiracy. This is no longer a game of words and symbols. This is real. This is dangerous. And you know, with a terrifying certainty, that you do not want to turn back. The secret meeting in the garden changes everything. The world is now split into two distinct realities: the drab, public world of daylight, and the vibrant, secret world that belongs to just the two of you. But this new world is a fragile one, built in the shadows and sustained by whispers. To protect it, you must become a master of surveillance, constantly aware of the eyes and ears that surround you. The castle, your home, transforms into an landscape of potential threats. Every corridor is a risk. A chance encounter with your lover could be a moment of joy, but it's also a moment of extreme peril. You learn to communicate with nothing more than a glance. A slight nod as you pass in a crowded hallway, a fleeting smile that no one else can see. These become your new language. The Great Hall, once a place of community, is now a place of nerve-wracking performance. You must sit through endless meals, feigning serene indifference, while the man you are secretly meeting is just a few feet away. You must listen to your husband discuss estate business, all the while your mind is replaying a whispered conversation from the night before. Your most constant source of anxiety is the servants. They are the castle's invisible nervous system. They move through every room, see every interaction, and hear every conversation. The chambermaid who makes your bed, the page who serves your wine, the stable hand who grooms the horses, they are all potential witnesses. Their loyalty is not to you personally, but to the lord of the castle, your husband. A single, careless word from a servant to the wrong person could destroy you. You become paranoid, but it's a rational paranoia. You start to notice things you never did before. The way a pair of lawn dresses fall silent when you approach. The curious look from a squire as you speak a seemingly innocent word to your knight. Are they suspicious? Or are you just imagining it? You can never be sure, and that uncertainty is a constant, low-grade torture. This pervasive lack of privacy is a core aspect of medieval noble life that is hard for us to comprehend. The concept of personal space was minimal. A lord and lady would have their own bedchamber, but even that was not truly private. Ladies in waiting often sat on pallets on the floor of the same room. Personal attendants were always present. To be truly alone was a rare and precious commodity, one that had to be actively sought out. The castle was a fishbowl, and you were one of the prize fish. This environment made conducting a secret affair an incredibly difficult and dangerous logistical challenge. It wasn't just about avoiding the husband, it was about avoiding everyone. This brings up a strange and somewhat counterintuitive fact about medieval castles. They were not designed for privacy. They were designed for community and defense. The layout, with its great halls, communal sleeping arrangements for most staff, and interconnected rooms, meant that secrets were almost impossible to keep. Secret passages, a staple of modern fantasy castles, were exceedingly rare in reality. If they existed, they were usually for military purposes, sally ports for escape or surprise attacks, not for clandestine romantic liaisons. So where could you meet? Where could you speak freely even for a moment? You become an expert in the castle's hidden geographies. The abandoned storeroom at the top of the North Tower. The quiet corners of the chapel late in the afternoon when it's empty. The far end of the orchard, beyond the sight lines of the castle walls. Each of these places becomes a potential sanctuary, a temporary bubble of privacy in a world that offers none. The historical debate here centers on the role of confidantes. In the romances, the lovers always have a trusted friend or a loyal servant who helps them, carrying messages and arranging meetings. Tristan has his loyal servant Governor Lancelot as his confidantes. Did this happen in real life? It's almost certain that it did. An affair of this magnitude would be nearly impossible to sustain without at least one accomplice. But this created an even greater risk, and your lover's life were now in the hands of a third person. Their loyalty could be bought. They could be threatened. A trusted friend could become a bitter rival. A loyal servant could be tempted by the reward for betrayal. You find yourself studying the faces of your ladies-in-waiting, trying to gauge their loyalty, their discretion. Is there one you can trust? The young one who looks at you with doe-eyed adoration? The older, cynical one who seems to know all the court's secrets? Choosing a confidant is a gamble of the highest order. A wrong choice would be fatal. For now, you trust no one. You and he are alone in your conspiracy, and the strain of constant vigilance is beginning to wear on you. Every footstep behind you in the corridor makes your heart leap. Every unexpected summons from your husband fills you with a cold dread. The thrill of the secret is still there, but it is now intertwined with a deep and abiding fear. You have built a beautiful, secret world, but its walls are made of glass. The fear becomes a constant companion, a shadow that follows you even into the heart of your secret joy. The affair escalates. The stolen moments in the garden and the whispered conversations in forgotten corners of the castle are no longer enough. The powerful emotional connection, fueled by months of clandestine glances and poetic exchanges, now demands a physical consummation. It's an inevitability, the logical conclusion of the path you have been walking. The first time it happens, it is a moment of pure, terrifying bliss. Every rule you have ever lived by, every vow you have ever made, is broken. It is an act of rebellion, an assertion of your own desire in a life that has been dictated by the desires of others. In those moments with him, you are not a political pawn or a dynastic vessel. You are simply a woman choosing being chosen. The connection is electric, a powerful antidote to the cold emptiness of your marriage bed. It feels like the most real thing in your life. But as soon as the moment passes, another feeling rushes in to take its place: guilt. It's a heavy, suffocating blanket. You have not just broken a social rule in the eyes of your world, you have broken a sacred one. You have betrayed the sacrament of marriage, a vow made before God. You have betrayed your husband, not the man you love, but the man to whom you are legally and spiritually bound. And perhaps most significantly, you have betrayed your family, your lineage. You have jeopardized the honor of your house for a personal passion. This feeling is a cocktail of genuine remorse and pragmatic fear. The guilt is real, a product of your religious upbringing and your understanding of your duty. But it's also tangled up with the terror of the consequences. The sin is not just against God, it is against the entire social order. Adultery for a high-born woman was not just a moral failing, it was a crime. A crime of treason. Why was a wife's adultery considered so much more serious than a husband's? The reason is brutally practical and central to the entire aristocratic system: the legitimacy of the heir. A husband who took a mistress or fathered illegitimate children might be committing a sin, but it didn't threaten the main bloodline. His illegitimate children had no claim to his lands or titles. But a wife's affair, that could introduce a cuckoo's egg into the nest. It could result in a child who was not the Lord's son, but who would unknowingly inherit everything. It was an act of genetic theft that could misdirect the entire fortune and power of a noble house. This is why the punishment was so severe. You weren't just cheating on your husband, you were threatening the very foundation of his legacy. This leads to a weird and rather grim piece of legal history. The punishments for a noblewoman's adultery were often brutal. Depending on the time and place, she could be publicly shamed, have her head shaved and be sent to a convent for the rest of her life, or worse. Her lover could be imprisoned, mutilated, or executed. The discovery of your affair would not lead to a quiet divorce. It would lead to a catastrophic public scandal that would utterly destroy you both. So every moment of stolen pleasure is paid for with hours of anxiety. The joy of the affair is forever tainted by the salt and iron taste of betrayal. You lie in your marital bed at night, next to your sleeping husband, and your skin crawls with the memory of another man's touch. You attend Mass in the chapel, kneeling and praying for forgiveness, while simultaneously planning your next secret meeting. This internal conflict, this duality of feeling, is a theme that even the courtly romances themselves sometimes explored. The lovers are often depicted as feeling both ecstatic joy and profound guilt. Is this a realistic psychological portrait? Or is it a way for the poets to have their cake and eat it, to titillate their audience with a forbidden romance while still paying lip service to conventional morality? Historians who study the emotional landscape of the past are fascinated by this question. Did people in this era compartmentalize their lives, separating the sinful affair from their public duties and religious beliefs? Or did they live in a state of constant, gut-wrenching cognitive dissonance? You are living that dissonance. The love you feel for the night feels pure and true, a light in the darkness of your life. It feels more right than the cold, loveless marriage you were forced into. And yet, you know that in the eyes of your world, that love is esteemed as sin, a crime. You are living a paradox. The thing that makes you feel most alive is the very thing that could get you killed. The heartbeats of passion are indistinguishable from the heartbeats of fear. With every lie you tell, you are weaving the threads of the web that will eventually, inevitably, ensnare you. In the quiet moments, when the fear and guilt recede, you find yourself thinking about the stories. The great romances, the ones the troubadours sing about, are no longer just entertainment. They have become your guidebooks, your cautionary tales, and your mirrors. You see your own life reflected in their tragic, beautiful patterns. And no story looms larger, no fate feels more entwined with your own, than that of Lancelot, but and Guinevere. You've known the story your whole life. Lancelot, the greatest knight of the Round Table, fearless in battle, loyal to his king in all things but one. And Guinevere, the beautiful queen, wife of the great King Arthur. Their love was the most famous, the most celebrated, and the most destructive in the entire canon of romance. Their affair, born of the same courtly ideals you are now living, is the secret flaw in the heart of Camelot, the crack that will eventually shatter the fellowship of the Round Table and bring the whole kingdom to ruin. You listen to the poets tell their story, and the parallels are chillingly precise. Lancelot, like your knight, is a landless warrior whose prowess is his only currency. He is utterly devoted to his queen, performing impossible deeds of valor in her name. Guinevere, like you, is trapped in a political marriage to a powerful man she respects but does not love. Arthur is a good king, a just ruler, but he is not a passionate husband. He is wedded to his kingdom, to his duties. Just as your own husband is wedded to his lands and his lineage. The story provides a romantic blueprint for your actions. The secret glances, the tournaments fought in her honor, the stolen meetings, it's all there. The story legitimizes your own feelings. If the greatest knight and the noblest queen could fall into such a love, then perhaps your own transgression is not just a sordid, selfish act, but something grander, more tragic, more epic. You are not just a cheating wife, you are living out one of the great archetypes of love. This is a key function of myth and literature. It gives us a framework to understand our own messy lives. By seeing your affair as a reflection of Lancelot and Guinevere's, you elevate it. You ennoble your own poor choices by draping them in the epic tapestry of legend. But the story is not just a comfort. It is also a terrifying prophecy. You know how it ends. Their love for all its beauty and passion is a cancer. It is discovered. The discovery leads to accusations, to civil war. Knight turns against knight, the kingdom is torn apart, and Arthur himself is killed. Lancelot and Guy never are left with nothing but ruin and regret, ending their days in separate monasteries forever apart. Their great love story ends in the total destruction of everything they held dear. A strange and little-known detail about the Lancelot story is its evolution. In the earliest Welsh legends about Arthur, Guinevere is a much more ambiguous, sometimes even treacherous, figure, and Lancelot doesn't exist at all. He was a later invention, a French addition to the mythos, introduced in the 12th century by poets like Chrétien de Troyes. He was created specifically to embody the new ideals of courtly love. The most famous love affair in Western literature was essentially a piece of fan fiction, a character inserted into an existing story to explore a fashionable new romantic concept. This fact subtly changes your perception of the tale. The ancient legend that seems to be dictating your fate is, in fact, a relatively recent literary invention, created by a poet to entertain a court not so different from your own. The story isn't a timeless prophecy, it's a script. And it's a script with a very clear, very tragic third act. The historical debate around these romances is whether their audiences truly saw them as cautionary tales. Did they listen to the story of Camelot's fall and think, this is why adultery is bad? Or did they secretly root for the lovers, admiring their passion and courage, and viewing the tragic ending as a kind of beautiful, romantic necessity? Scholars argue that many in the audience probably did both. They could publicly tut-tut at the lovers' sin while privately thrilling to their rebellion. The stories allowed them to vicariously experience the ultimate romantic fantasy, while still upholding conventional morality by acknowledging the disastrous consequences. You are no longer a member of the audience. You are on the stage, living the story, and the tragic ending doesn't feel romantic or beautiful. It feels terrifyingly real. When you look at your lover, you see Lancelot, noble and doomed. When you look at your husband, you see the shadow of the betrayed king. And when you look at the life you have built, the fragile piece of the castle, the network of alliances, the future of your husband's domain, you see Camelot, a glittering kingdom poised on the brink of collapse. The story that once felt like a justification now feels like a countdown. You are trapped in the legend, and you know with a sickening certainty that you are heading towards the final tragic chapter. The greatest love story ever told is also a roadmap to your own destruction. The affair settles into a perilous routine of secret meetings and carefully managed lies. The grand, public gestures of the tournament are replaced by a quieter, more intense intimacy. In this new phase, the exchange of gifts becomes a central ritual. These are not the formal public favors like the ribbon on the lance. These are secret tokens, objects imbued with a deep, personal meaning that must be kept hidden at all costs. He gives you a small, intricately carved wooden bird, something he whittled himself during the long hours of a night watch. It's a worthless object in terms of material value, but to you, it is more precious than any jewel. You keep it hidden in the bottom of a locked chest, wrapped in a piece of linen. To hold it is to hold a secret piece of him, a tangible representation of the time and care he took in thinking of you. In return, you give him a small personal item of your own. Perhaps a glove, not a formal gauntlet, but a soft leather glove you have worn, one that still carries the faint scent of your skin. Or maybe a lock of your hair, a classic romantic token tied with a thread. He cannot wear these things publicly. He must keep them hidden, sewn into the lining of his tunic or kept in a pouch close to his heart. These objects are the physical anchors of your secret world. The exchange of gifts is a well-documented part of both real and literary courtly relationships. It solidifies the bond and serves as a constant, physical reminder of the other person. But these tokens are also, quite literally, ticking time bombs. They are pieces of evidence. That carved bird, if discovered in your chest, would be difficult to explain. Your glove, if found among his possessions, would be an accusation in itself. A lock of your hair, that is a confession. This brings us to a specific, and rather grim, piece of medieval lore, the concept of love magic. It was widely believed that objects that had been in close contact with a person's body hair, nail clippings, blood, or even clothing retained a part of their essence. These items could be used in potions or spells to bewitch someone, to force them to fall in love against their will. This belief was taken very seriously. An accusation of using love magic could be as dangerous as an accusation of witchcraft, and it was a charge that could land you in front of an ecclesiastical court. So that lock of hair you gave him is not just a romantic token. In the wrong hands, it could be twisted into evidence that you are a sorceress who has enchanted one of your husband's knights, using black magic to lure him into an illicit affair. It's a preposterous idea to your modern sensibilities, but in the medieval mindset, where the line between the natural and the supernatural was blurry, it was a very real danger. The most romantic gesture could be reinterpreted as the most sinister crime. You live in constant fear of these objects being discovered. You develop a paranoid sixth sense. You check the hiding place of the wooden bird daily. When your ladies in waiting are cleaning your chambers, you watch them like a hawk, terrified they might stumble upon your secret. You imagine all the ways your gifts to him could be found. What if he is wounded in a skirmish and his tunic is cut away, revealing the lock of hair? What if his room is searched for some unrelated reason? The academic debate surrounding these tokens is about their primary function. Were they mainly sentimental objects, as we would see them today, meant to comfort the lovers and remind them of each other? Or were they more like contracts, physical symbols of the pledge the lovers had made to one another? Some historians argue that in a world with low literacy, objects often took the place of written documents. Giving him your glove wasn't just a sentimental gesture, it was a physical transfer of your faith, a tangible promise. The object itself became a witness to your bond. This interpretation makes the tokens even more dangerous. They aren't just sentimental trinkets, they are incriminating legal documents in a court of love. They prove the existence of a pact. The weight of these secrets becomes immense. The joy of receiving a hidden gift is immediately followed by the terror of having to hide it. The very objects that are meant to bring you closer become sources of division and fear, constant reminders of the peril you are in. Your most treasured possessions are also your greatest liabilities. They are the tangible proof of your betrayal, a collection of evidence just waiting for a prosecutor to find it. Secret world you've built is becoming cluttered with dangerous things, and you have the growing, sickening feeling that you are building your own prison, one secret gift at a time. The danger you soon realize may not come from where you expect. You have spent all your energy worrying about your husband, about the servants, about the discovery of a physical token. You have been so focused on the primary threat that you have failed to notice the secondary one, which is often far more venomous, the jealousy of your peers. The court is a closed ecosystem, a pressure cooker of ambition and rivalry. Your elevation to Queen of Love and Beauty did not just win you the admiration of your champion, it also won you the resentment of every other lady in the viewing stand that day. The special attention you received from this handsome, celebrated knight has made you a target. There is one lady in particular. Perhaps she is a cousin of your husband, or a lady in waiting who has been at the court far longer than you. She is a woman who, for her own reasons, feels overlooked. Maybe she once had hurting the knight's attention herself. Maybe she is simply a bitter and ambitious person who sees your happiness as an affront to her own unhappiness. She begins to watch you. Her observation is not like the idle gossip of the servants. It is sharp, intelligent, and malicious. She notices the things that others miss. She sees that the glance you share with the knight across the hall is not just friendly, but conspiratorial. She notes how you both seem to disappear from the feast at the same time. She is not just seeing events, she is connecting them, forming a narrative. She is building a case against you in her mind. You feel the chill of her gaze during meals. You see her talking in hushed tones with other women, and when you approach, the conversation abruptly stops. She starts to make small, pointed comments, verbal traps disguised as innocent questions. My lady, you seem so full of light these days. One might think you have a secret joy. Or, that is a handsome new knight in my lord's retinue career. It seems you have taken a special interest in his career. Each comment is a poisoned dart, designed to see if you flinch. This dynamic, the jealous rival who exposes the lovers, as a classic trope in the courtly romances themselves. In the story of Tristan and Isolde, It's the treacherous barons, jealous of Tristan's favor with the king, who lay the trap that exposes the affair. The danger comes not from the betrayed husband, but from the envious colleagues. This literary trope was likely a very accurate reflection of the reality of court politics. An affair was a source of power and status for the people involved. Exposing it was a way for rivals to humble them and increase their own standing. This brings us to a strange and specific aspect of medieval social life: the formal role of slander and defamation. Words had immense power. A person's reputation, their honor, was their most valuable asset. Spreading malicious rumors that damaged someone's honor was not just rude, it could be a crime, one that could be brought before a court. However, if the rumor turned out to be true, then it wasn't slander. It was a righteous accusation. Your rival is walking a fine line. If she accuses you falsely, she could be punished. But if she can prove her accusations, she will be rewarded for exposing a threat to the Lord's honor. So she doesn't make a formal accusation. Not yet. She plays a more subtle game. She begins to lay a trail of breadcrumbs for your husband to find. She might compliment him on the loyalty of his knights, while giving a significant look in the direction of your champion. Or she might accidentally mention to him that she saw you walking in the garden late at night, framing it as a concern for your safety. She is planting seeds of suspicion, carefully watering them, waiting for them to grow. The historical debate here revolves around the agency of women in these courtly power games. Were they merely pawns in the political machinations of men? Or were they active players, using the tools available to them: gossip, insinuation, social networking, to pursue their own ambitions and destroy their rivals? The evidence suggests that while their power was more subtle than that of the men, it was no less real. The ladies' chambers, the sewing circles, the viewing stands at tournaments, these were all arenas for political maneuvering. Your rival is not just a jilted woman, she is a political operator, and you are her target. The fear you feel now is different. It's no longer the abstract fear of God or the direct fear of your husband. It's the intimate, suffocating fear of a personal enemy. Someone is actively working towards your downfall. The castle, which was already a fishbowl, now feels like an arena, and you are one of the gladiators, but your opponent isn't the lion. It's the other gladiator, smiling at you from across the sand, all while sharpening her blade in secret. The beautiful lie of your love is no longer just threatened by discovery, it's being actively hunted. Your rival's campaign of insinuation begins to bear fruit. The seeds of suspicion she so carefully planted in your husband's mind have started to sprout. You notice a change in him. It is not a sudden, dramatic shift, but a slow, chilling alteration in the atmosphere between you. The formal, distant politeness that has defined your marriage begins to feel different. It's no longer just the absence of a cold, watchful intensity. His gaze, which used to pass over you with mild indifference, now lingers. He watches you when you speak, when you interact with others in the court. He is not just looking at you, he is studying you. He is searching for cracks in your performance. His questions become more pointed, though always couched in casualness. You seem to enjoy the gardens at night, he might say, his voice even, but his eyes sharp. I trust you are well attended. Or our new knight has proven a great champion. He seems to have a great admirer in you. He is testing you, laying the same verbal traps your rival did, but he's had the weight of authority behind them. Each question is a small interrogation, and you feel a bead of sweat on your brow as you formulate your calm, measured, untroubled replies. The marital bed, once a place of cold duty, becomes a place of quiet terror. You lie beside him in the dark, feigning sleep, acutely aware of his wake of signals. You can feel him watching you in the darkness. You can hear the slow, deliberate rhythm of his breathing, and wonder what he is thinking. Is he suspicious, or is he certain? Is he gathering proof, or is he simply waiting for you to make a mistake? The silence between you is no longer empty, it is filled with unspoken accusations. This scenario, the slow dawning suspicion of the husband, is a cornerstone of the aristocratic adultery narrative. A key mainstream historical point is that a nobleman's honor was inextricably linked to the fidelity of his wife. Her adultery was not just a personal betrayal, it was a public humiliation. It suggested that he was weak, unable to control his own household, his own property. Therefore, he could not simply ignore rumors. He had to act to protect his honor and his status, but he also had to be careful. A public accusation without proof could backfire, making him look like a jealous fool and creating a scandal when none existed. So he watches, he waits, he gathers information. This is not just a fit of jealousy, it is a cold, calculated political process. This brings up a fascinatedly weird detail of medieval law and custom, the trial by ordeal or trial by combat. In cases where there was no clear evidence, it was sometimes believed that God would reveal the truth. In a trial by combat, the accuser and the accused or their chosen champions would fight. The winner was deemed to be in the right, as God would have given him the victory. Can you imagine? Your lover's guilt or innocence could be proven by his ability to defeat your husband, or your husband's champion in a formal duel. While more common in earlier medieval periods and for specific legal disputes, the principle lingered: a man's word and his sword word deeply connected. Your husband is not yet at the point of calling for a duel, but his scrutiny feels like a trial of its own. You are on the stand every single day. The strain is immense. You have to be perfect, flawless. Any sign of nervousness, any slip of the tongue, could be interpreted as guilt. Your life becomes a tightrope walk over a canyon of suspicion. The historical debate among scholars here is nuanced. Did these powerful, pragmatic lords truly care about the emotional betrayal of an affair? Or was their primary concern the material and political consequences, the threat to their honor and the legitimacy of their heirs? Some argue that for these men, marriage was a business contract, and their wife's affair was a breach of that contract to be dealt with pragmatically. Others argue that we shouldn't underestimate the power of personal pride and emotion. These were passionate, often violent men. The idea that another man was sleeping with their wife was likely to provoke a very real, very personal rage, separate from any political calculation. You suspect that with your husband, it is a cold and terrifying mixture of both. You see it in his eyes. There is the cold calculation of a lord protecting his lineage, but there is also a flicker of something else, something more personal. A wounded pride, an icy anger. He is not just a cuckolded husband from a comedic fable. He is a powerful man who has been made to look a fool in his own home, and that is a dangerous thing. You redouble your efforts to be the perfect wife. You are more attentive, more dutiful, more serene than ever before. You avoid your lover completely, communicating only through the most fleeting and desperate of glances. You are trying to quell the suspicion, to starve the fire by denying it oxygen, but you fear it is too late. The change in your husband is too profound. He is no longer the distant, preoccupied stranger. He has become your warden, your interrogator, with a certainty that chills you to the bone, that he is just waiting for the one piece of irrefutable proof he needs to bring your world crashing down. The blow comes from a direction you never anticipated. It is not delivered by your jealous rival nor by your suspicious husband. It comes from within your own small circle of trust, a betrayal so sharp and unexpected it leaves you breathless. In the escalating paranoia of the past few weeks, you had made a calculated gamble. You chose a confidant. She was one of your ladies in waiting, a young woman named Elise, quiet and seemingly devoted to you. You had known her for years. She had been with you since before your marriage, a familiar face from your old life. You trusted her. You saw her as a little sister, someone who understood your loneliness and sympathized with your impossible situation. At first, she was a lifeline. She carried messages between you and the night, scraps of parchment with hastily scribbled words of reassurance and longing. She stood watch during your brief, perilous meetings, ready to create a distraction if anyone approached. She was your co-conspirator, the third point in your secret triangle. You confided in her, sharing your fears and your joys. You believed her loyalty was absolute, born of affection and sisterly solidarity. You were wrong. What you didn't know was that Elise had her own ambitions. She was from a pure noble family with no land and no prospects. Her only path to advancement was through a strategic marriage. For months, another knight at the court, an older, widowed man with a small but secure estate, had been showing interest in her. He was not a romantic figure, but he offered her a future, a home, a position of her own. There was just one problem: he was a close friend and loyal vassal of your husband. The temptation became too great. The value of your secret was far greater than the value of her loyalty to you. By betraying you, she could gain everything she ever wanted. She could go to the older knight, or even directly to your husband, and offer them the one thing they needed: irrefutable proof. In exchange for this information, she could secure her marriage, her future. She weighed your friendship against a life of security and status, and your friendship was found wanting. The betrayal is clinical and devastating. One evening, she comes to you, her face a mask of distress. She tells you that the knight is waiting for you in the West Tower, that he has something urgent to tell you. It's a familiar ruse, a meeting she herself has arranged many times before. You feel a prickle of unease. It feels too sudden, too risky, but you trust her. You trust Elite. You make your way to the tower, your heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. You climb the winding stone steps, the air growing colder as you ascend. You reach the small chamber at the top. The knight is there waiting. But the moment you step inside, before either of you can speak, the heavy oak door slams shut behind you. You hear the unmistakable sound of a large iron bar being dropped into place, locking you in. And then you hear footsteps. Not the light, scurrying footsteps of Elise, but the heavy, deliberate tread of armored men, and the voice of your husband, cold as the grave. I believe we have something to discuss. This is the classic honey trap, a scenario found in countless medieval stories and likely in reality as well. The lovers are lured to a secret meeting place, only to be trapped and discovered by the betrayed husband. It's the moment the private affair becomes a public crime. A specific, weird detail about medieval law is the concept of being caught in flagrante delicto, literally, while the crime is blazing. If a husband caught his wife and her lover in the act of adultery, he sometimes had the legal right to kill them both on the spot without a trial. While this was not universally legal and changed over time, the principle was clear: being caught red-handed gave the wronged husband extraordinary powers. Your husband, by trapping you both in a locked room, has created a situation that is legally almost as damning. The historical question here is about the nature of betrayal. Was it always for such clear, pragmatic reasons as Elise's? Or were betrayals also driven by more complex emotions, by petty jealousy, by a sense of moral outrage, or by a genuine, if misguided, loyalty to the betrayed lord? Historians who study court records and personal letters motives. Betrayal is rarely a simple transaction. It's a messy, human act. But for Elise, it was a trade. You and the knight stand frozen in the small, cold room. The fantasy is over. The beautiful lie has been ripped away, exposing the ugly, terrifying reality beneath. There are no more poems, no more romantic ideals. There is only the cold stone, the locked door, and the sound of your husband's voice on the other side. The trust you placed in a friend has become the key to your own cage. The game is over, and you have lost in the most brutal way imaginable. The iron bar is lifted and the door creaks open. Your husband stands in the doorway, silhouetted against the torchlight of the corridor behind him. He is not raging. He is not shouting. His calmness is far more terrifying than any outburst of anger would be. His face is a mask of cold, controlled fury. Behind him stand two of his most loyal guards, their hands resting on the pommels of their swords. The moment is one of utter, chilling silence. He does not speak to you. He doesn't even look at you. His eyes are fixed on your lover, the knight who swore an oath of fealty to him, the man who ate at his table and served in his retinue. The betrayal for him is twofold. It is personal, but it is also feudal. This is an act of treason against him as a husband and as a lord. Take him to the dungeons, he says, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. The guards step forward. The knight does not resist. He knows there is no point. He gives you one last, desperate look, a look of apology, of despair, of shared ruin. Then he is led away, his footsteps echoing down the stone staircase until they fade into silence. You are left alone with your husband in the small, cold room. The silence stretches thick and heavy. You are waiting for the explosion, for the accusations, for the verdict. But it doesn't come. He finally turns his gaze to you, and his eyes are like chips of ice. This is no longer a private matter, he says. This is an affair of state. And with that he turns and leaves you there, pulling the door shut but not locking it. You are not a prisoner in the same way the night is. You are something else. You are a problem to be managed. The days that follow are a blur of surreal, quiet horror. You are confined to your chambers, but you are not mistreated. You are waited on as you always were, but your ladies in waiting, including your betrayer Elise, will not meet your eye. They move around you in a bubble of fearful silence. You are a ghost in your own life. The event is no longer a secret. The castle is buzzing with the scandal. It's not just gossip anymore, it's a full-blown political crisis. Your husband has called a council. He has summoned his most important vassals, his wisest advisors, and crucially, a representative from your own family, your father or uncle, the man who arranged the marriage. This is the mainstream historical process for handling such a high-level crisis. A noblewoman couldn't just be punished by her husband in a fit of rage. She was a representative of her own powerful family, and any action taken against her had diplomatic consequences. The trial that takes place is not a trial of guilt or innocence. Everyone knows what happened. The trial is about the consequences. It's a negotiation. You are not even present. Your fate is being decided in a closed room by a group of men whose primary concerns are power, land, and the stability of their alliances. Here is a bizarre and fascinating detail of medieval legal thought, the idea of infamy. When you committed a serious crime, you didn't just become guilty, you became infamous. This was a formal legal status. An infamous person lost certain rights. They could not serve as a witness in court, could not hold public office, and were essentially stripped of their credibility and social standing. The scandal has made you infamous. You have lost your good name, which was your most valuable asset. In that council room, your husband lays out his case. His honor has been stained. The legitimacy of any future children you might have is now in question. He has grounds to have the marriage annulled. He could repudiate you, send you back to your family in disgrace, and be free to marry someone else, someone who can provide him with undisputed heirs. But your family's representative pushes back. An annulment would be a public declaration that the alliance between your two houses is broken. It would be a massive political insult. It could lead to disputes over your dowry, the lands and money your family gave. It could even lead to open conflict. The historical debate here centers on the real power a wife's family held in these situations. How much could they protect her? If her family was significantly more powerful than her husband's, they could shield her from the worst consequences, forcing a reconciliation to preserve the alliance. If her family was weaker, or if the political winds had shifted, she might be cast aside with little thought. Your life hangs in the balance of these cold, political calculations. So they debate, they argue, they weigh the cost of a broken alliance against the cost of a stained bloodline. They are not discussing your love, your betrayal, or your broken heart. They are discussing property, strategy, and power. The beautiful, passionate, secret world you built with your lover has been reduced to a series of entries on a political ledger. All the poetry, all the stolen glances, all the secret joys have been stripped away, and what is left is a dirty, inconvenient political problem. You are no longer a person. You are a liability. And in a room down the hall, the men of your world are deciding whether you are a liability they can afford to keep. The verdict comes not with a formal announcement, but with a quiet, chilling finality. Your guardian, the man from your own family, comes to your chambers. His face is grim, etched with the fatigue of a long and difficult negotiation. He does not look at you with sympathy, but with a kind of weary disappointment. You are a problem he has had to solve. He tells you the decision of the council. There will be no public annulment. The alliance between your two families is too important to sacrifice. The scandal will be contained, managed. On the surface, nothing will change. You will remain the lady of the castle, your husband's wife. The seamless facade of your marriage will be maintained for the sake of political stability. You feel a momentary, dizzying rush of relief. You will not be cast out. You will not be sent to a convent in disgrace. But the relief is short-lived because he has not finished. Your lover, he says, the words clipped and precise, has been judged guilty of treason against his lord. He will be banished. He must leave these lands by sunrise tomorrow and never return, on pain of death. Banishment. It's a punishment that sounds less brutal than execution, but in your world, it is a kind of living death. Pale and less night with no lord, no home, and a reputation for treason is a pariah. He will find no service in any respectable household. He will be forced to live percentages, perhaps as a mercenary, a bandit, or a beggar. His life as he knew it is over. You have not just cost him his position, you have cost him his identity, his future, his honor. And then your guardian delivers the final, crushing blow. The price of your remaining here, the price of maintaining the alliance, is your complete and utter submission. You will be a wife in name only. You will retain your title, your chambers, your servants. But you will be stripped of all real authority. The management of the household will be given to one of your husband's female relatives. You will be a guest in your own home, a decorative figurehead with no power. You are to be a prisoner in a gilded cage, your life a long, slow penance for your crime. This is the cold, hard reality of medieval justice. It is not about fairness or rehabilitation. It is about restoring order and protecting the interests of the powerful. The judgment is a masterful piece of political calculation. Your husband avoids the dishonor and political fallout of an annulment. Your family avoids the public shame of having you return to them. The knight is removed as a threat, and you are neutralized, kept as a symbol of the alliance, but rendered completely powerless. Everyone in power gets what they need. The only things that are sacrificed are your freedom, your love, and your future. The concept of honor here is paramount. Your husband's honor has been satisfied, not through vengeance, but through a reassertion of his total control. This brings up a strange detail about the medieval concept of honor. It was less about internal feelings of virtue and more about external reputation. It was a commodity that could be lost, defended, and regained through public actions. By banishing your lover and effectively imprisoning you, your husband demonstrates to the world that he is in command, that the breach has been repaired, his reputation is restored. The scholarly debate on this topic often asks, what was the goal of justice in these cases? Was it to punish the guilty, to deter others, or simply to solve a political problem with the least amount of disruption? In cases involving the high nobility, the answer is almost always the latter. Justice was a tool of statecraft. The personal feelings of the individuals involved, your grief, your lover's despair, were irrelevant to the larger equation of power. Your guardian finishes speaking. He has delivered the terms of your surrender. There is nothing for you to say, no appeal you can make. The decision is final. He leaves you, and the silence in your chamber is heavier than ever before. You walk to the window that overlooks the castle courtyard. You stand there for hours, a silent vigil, as the sun begins to set. You are waiting for one last glimpse, one final goodbye. And as the dawn breaks, you see him. A lone figure on horseback, escorted by 2 guards to the castle gate. He does not look up. He does not look back. The gate opens, he rides through, and then he is gone, swallowed by the morning mist. The noose of Ming has tightened, and while you are still breathing, your life as you knew it is over. The aftermath is a landscape of quiet desolation. The castle, which was once the stage for your vibrant, secret life, is now just a place of shadows and routine. The affair, which had consumed your every thought, is now a ghost that haunts the corridors, a story that everyone knows but no one speaks of. You see the consequences of your romance etched into the life of the court. The older knight who was interested in your betrayer, Elise, has married her. She is now the lady of her own small estate, her future secured by your ruin. You see her sometimes, and she has the decency to look away, a flicker of shame or perhaps just discomfort in her eyes. Her betrayal was a success. Your husband treats you with an icy, impeccable courtesy. He is the image of a magnanimous lord who has wisely and dispassionately handled a difficult domestic affair. He has shown mercy by not casting you out, and in doing so, has enhanced his own reputation for sober judgment. He has won. He has reasserted his authority, protected his alliance, and eliminated his rival. You are the living symbol of his victory, a beautiful, silent trophy in his great hall. Your lover is gone, banished. You hear whispers sometimes, rumors that travel with merchants and wandering soldiers. Someone saw him in a tavern in a distant port city, looking thin and worn. Someone else heard he had joined a mercenary company fighting in a forgotten border war. Each rumor is a fresh twist of the knife, a reminder of the life he is now forced to lead. The dashing champion of the tournament, the sensitive poet, is now a nameless, faceless man drifting through the underbelly of the world. This is the true cost of your brief, beautiful rebellion. It wasn't just your own happiness that was on the line. Your actions have had real, devastating consequences for others. This is a core historical truth that the Romantic poems often gloss over. They focus on the noble suffering of the two lovers, but they rarely dwell on the collateral damage, the political instability, the betrayed allegiances, the ruined lives of those caught in the fallout. You find the small, folded sonnet he wrote for you, hidden away in the bottom of your chest. You read the words that once made your heart soar. A distant celestial being, a star that guides him. A holy light that both inspires him and causes him immense sweet suffering. It seems like a cruel mockery now. The sweet suffering he wrote about has become a very real and bitter exile. The holy light you were supposed to be has turned out to be a destructive fire, burning down his life and your own. This leads to a strange and poignant detail about the poetry of courtly love. Many of the troubadours and poets who wrote these passionate verses were, like your knight, men of low status completely dependent on the patronage of the powerful. They wrote about a fantasy of lover's power, where a knight's devotion could win him the heart of a great lady. But the reality was that their own lives were incredibly precarious. A poem that was seen as too presumptuous or that offended a powerful lord could lead to the instant loss of their livelihood, to banishment, or worse. The suffering lover of the poems was often a very real suffering artist, one ill-judged stanza away from ruin. The academic debate here is a profound one. Can we separate the art from the consequences? Can we still see the beauty in the poetry of courtly love, knowing the destructive potential of the actions it romanticized? Some scholars argue that we must view it as a product of its time, a complex social game with high stakes, and appreciate its artistic merits on their own terms. Others argue that it's impossible to ignore the real-world context, that the beautiful lie of the poetry was a dangerous fantasy that helped to justify reckless and destructive behavior. You are living the answer to that debate. The poem in your hand is no longer a work of art. It is an artifact of a catastrophe. It is a suicide note for a life that could have been. You walk to the fireplace in your chamber, the parchment held loosely in your fingers. For a moment you hesitate, wanting to keep this last piece of him, this last remnant of the beautiful lie, but you know you can't. The lie is too heavy to carry. You let the parchment drop into the flames. The edges curl and blacken, the elegant handwriting turning to ash. The words of adoration, the promises of devotion, the entire, intoxicating fantasy, it all dissolves into smoke and disappears up the chimney. You watch it burn until there is nothing left. It was all just words, and a single poem, a single beautiful lie, has cost a man his future and you your freedom. The romance is over. The years pass. The seasons turn within the castle walls, a slow, repeating cycle of planting and harvest, of winter feasts and summer hunts. Your life settles into a state of profound and unchanging stillness. You are a statue in the garden of your own life, beautiful, admired from a distance, but cold, silent, and unmoving. The memory of the affair, once a burning fire, has cooled into a dull, smooth stone of regret that you carry in the pit of your stomach. The sharp edges of the pain have worn away, leaving only a hollow ache. You see your husband regularly at meals, in the chapel. The icy courtesy between you has thawed into a kind of weary, functional truce. You are two strangers bound together by a shared history of betrayal and a mutual interest in maintaining the peace. But there is no longer any overt hostility. There is only a vast, empty space between you. You never have children. Whether by biological chance or by a deliberate, unspoken decision on his part to never again share your bed, the result is the same. The dynasty he was so desperate to protect will not pass through you. He eventually takes a mistress, a quiet arrangement with a woman of a lower class, and fathers several illegitimate children. Everyone in the court knows. Everyone politely pretends not to. It is the final, quiet humiliation, the confirmation of your ultimate failure to fulfill your primary function. One day, a young, ambitious troubadour arrives at the castle. He is full of the latest songs from the south, songs of brave knights and beautiful, unattainable ladies. He sings in the great hall, and the songs are so familiar, so full of the same romantic ideals that once captured your imagination. He sings of a lover's secret suffering, of a glance that is worth more than a kingdom, of a love that transcends duty. You watch the faces of the young women in the court. You see their eyes shining, their expressions rapt. They are drinking in the sweet poison, believing the beautiful lie just as you once did. You want to stand up and scream at them. You want to tell them that the suffering is not sweet, that the consequences are real and brutal, that the beautiful ideal is a fantasy that will break them. But you say nothing. You simply sit there, your face a serene mask, the perfect image of a noble lady. And in that moment you ask yourself the question that has haunted your quiet years. Was any of it real? Did you truly love him? Did he truly love you? This is the ultimate, unanswerable question that lies at the heart of the courtly love phenomenon, a question that historians still grapple with. What was the nature of this love? Was it a genuine, profound emotional connection, a real love that simply had the misfortune of existing outside the bounds of marriage, or was it something else entirely? Perhaps it was a form of profound narcissism. He didn't love you, the real, complex person. He loved the idealized image of you that he created in his poems, an image that allowed him to see himself as a noble, suffering hero. And perhaps you didn't love him. Perhaps you loved the way he saw you. You loved being the object of that idealized adoration, because it offered an escape from a life where you were valued only for your womb and your connections. Your love affair was a folie à deux, a shared delusion, a beautiful story you both agreed to tell yourselves because the reality of your lives was unbearable. This is a cynical view, but a powerful one. It suggests that courtly love was not love at all, but a sophisticated form of escapism, a game of mutual flattery. A lesser-known, more psychological interpretation from some scholars suggests that courtly love functioned as a necessary safety valve for the aristocracy. In a world of rigid social control and loveless arranged marriages, it provided a sanctioned space for the expression of powerful emotions that had nowhere else to go. The passion, the longing, the drama, it was all channeled into this elaborate, semi-fictional game, preventing those same emotions from truly disrupting the social order. The affair was a form of therapy, a way to cope with an emotionally sterile existence. You look back on the key moments. The ribbon at the tournament. The secret poem. The stolen meetings. Were these moments of genuine love? Or were they just moves in a game? Steps in an elaborate dance whose choreography you both instinctively understood? Did you love the man? Or did you love the feeling of rebellion? The thrill of having a secret, the intoxicating sensation of being desired? You have no answer. The truth is a tangled knot of all these things: genuine affection, selfish vanity, desperate escapism, and a shared longing for a life that was more than just a political contract. The love was not pure, but that does not mean the feelings were not real. The lie was beautiful, but that does not mean there was no truth in it. The young troubadour finishes his song. The court erupts in applause. You clap politely along with them, your expression placid. You have become the perfect audience for these stories because you know better than anyone that they are just that, stories. Beautiful, dangerous, and ultimately make-believe. The love you thought you had may never have truly existed, but its consequences have defined every single day of your long, quiet life. Decades have passed. The world you were born into is beginning to fade. Your husband is long dead. His lands passed to a nephew, the son of the mistress he took long ago, now a knight in the new lord's service. Frightened girl you once were seems like a character from a story you read long ago. The very nature of the world is changing. The old feudal certainties are giving way to something new. Kings are consolidating their power, creating centralized states with professional armies and bureaucracies. The freelance, landless knight of your youth is becoming an anachronism. replaced by paid soldiers who fight for a salary, not for the honor of a lady's favor. The tournament, once the center of courtly life, was becoming more of a theatrical pageant, a piece of nostalgic folklore rather than serious military training. And yet, the ghost of courtly love persists. It has escaped the confines of the medieval court and begun a new life, a new journey through the culture of the West. You see it in the books that are now becoming more common, thanks to the slow spread of the printing press. The old romances of Lancelot and Tristan are copied and recopied, read by a new merchant class who are eager to adopt the aristocratic ideals of the past. The idea of a passionate, all-consuming love that exists for its own sake, separate from duty and procreation, is a powerful and enduring fantasy. This is the great, mainstream legacy of courtly love. It created the blueprint for what we now call romantic love. The idea that love should be a transcendent emotional and spiritual connection, that it involves a degree of suffering and devotion, that it elevates the lover and the beloved. All these concepts, which we take for granted as being essential to romance, have their roots in the songs of those 12th century troubadours. You sit by a window watching the grandchildren of your betrayer, Elise, play in the courtyard. They are free in a way you never were. They might even have a choice in who they marry. The world has moved on, but it carries with it the DNA of your time, the cultural code that was written in those poems and enacted in those dangerous games. Here is one final, strange little fact. The very term courtly love was not invented in the Middle Ages. It was coined in 1883 by a French scholar named Gaston Paris. The people you knew, the knights, the ladies, the troubadours, never used that phrase. They spoke of fine amour or refined love. The neat, tidy label we put on this complex, messy, and often contradictory set of behaviors and ideals is a modern invention, an attempt by later centuries to make sense of a past that was far more chaotic and less systematic than the label implies. So, the very concept that has defined your life, the beautiful lie, is itself wrapped in another layer of historical construction. The academic debate on this is fierce. Does using a modern term like courtly love help us understand the past by giving us a useful shorthand for a complex phenomenon? Or does it distort the past by imposing a single, unified theory onto a diverse set of practices that varied wildly from place to place and from decade to decade? Some historians now avoid the term altogether, believing it creates more confusion than clarity. You wouldn't have known the term, but you knew the reality. You lived it. You lived the impossible contradiction of a love that was supposed to be ennobling but lead to ruin. A love that was celebrated in public song and punished in private chambers. A love that was intensely personal yet entirely performative. As you look out the window for the last time, you realize the most profound truth of all. The beautiful lie of courtly love was never about love, not really. It was about power. It was a way for landless knights to gain status. It was a way for bored, trapped noble women to exercise some small measure of control over their own lives, to feel seen and desired in a world that treated them as property. It was a game of subversion, played with the language of devotion, and ultimately doomed attempt to find a flicker of personal meaning in a world of rigid, impersonal duty. Your story was not a love story. It was a story of a quiet, personal war, fought with poems and glances instead of swords and shields. A war that you, and so many others like you, inevitably lost, but for a brief shining moment you had fought. And now the story fades. The stone walls of the castle dissolve into the soft darkness of your room. The echoes of the lute and the distant memory of a whispered name recede, replaced by the gentle hum of the fan, the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. The journey is over. You can let go of the weight of the velvet gown, the chill of the dungeon, the ache of a long-forgotten heartbreak. Imagine yourself drifting now, floating away from that world of stone and shadow. You are no longer the lady in the tower, no longer the pawn in a great game. You are simply here, in this quiet, safe space. Feel the weight of your own body, comfortable and still. Feel the gentle pull of sleep, a soft, warm tide drawing you out from the shore of wakefulness. The story was just a story, a dream of a time long past. Let its details soften and blur, like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. The faces of the knight and the husband fade. The sharp edges of fear and desire grow dull, blending into the peaceful landscape of your own mind. There are no more choices to be made, no more dangers to navigate. There is only the quiet, steady journey into the deep, restful landscapes of your own dreams. The beautiful lie has been told. Only a beautiful silence remains. Rest now. Sleep now. The end of the article. Good night.